Hey guys, Darkovika here. I'm trying a new placement of my camera because I've noticed I tend to lean to the left a little bit, and then my camera is I can't turn it to the left with where it was. That lighting though. What? Anyways, okay, so today I was looking back and I was looking at how to design a game #1 instructions, a video I uploaded a little while back, and I was thinking about how to design a game #2. This one is Tropes, and we're going to talk specifically about horror games. Horror games there's a reason that they are so well beloved in video games, in everything, is because they have a way of making us feel extreme emotions. They make us have adrenaline in a world where not every single one of us is fighting for a right to survive. And that's why games like horror games, military games, those types of video games, the gory kinds, the ones where you're fighting for survival, where you're a hero, those are often the more popular kinds because in today's time, that's not how we survive anymore. It's about earning money. It's about working in grueling jobs from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and worse. And for very little pay, and that's what survival is these days. There's no honor or glory to it. And that's why horror games or any kind of survival game that doesn't involve money or job systems, those ones are more popular because it's got that thing that we're missing. But I wanted to focus on horror games mostly. Horror games have the ability to invoke the strongest of emotions in us, fear, but then we can laugh afterwards at ourselves. It's fear for a short time and without any real basis, and therefore a better fear than, say, falling off of the side of a building. Don't do that. Or jumping out of a plane. I will possibly think about doing that at 10 million subscribers. No. Ugh. I'm gonna regret saying that. That's gonna get quoted back to me in like 2 years. Basically, in horror games, there are these things called tropes. And tropes are things that are overused or used quite often because they are either very meaningful, they've worked for a very long time, or they stand for something important, and which I think pretty much falls under meaningful. Whatever, you get the point. A popular trope is let's start at the top. Let's start with blood. Blood is an overused trope in horror. If you are looking at a horror game that you are creating, and you're thinking my game needs to be scarier, I know what it needs: more blood. No. Blood is fantastic when used in very small increments or in meaningful places. For example, if you're in a horror game and there is absolutely no blood anywhere ever, and all of a sudden you enter a room where blood is just splattered across the walls, that is frightful. Like, you've gone an entire game either getting jump scares or being scared that something's going to kill you, and then all of a sudden you enter a room where murder has happened and there's just this copious amount of this thing. That can be extremely well usage of blood. Or if it's in small amounts, like a little spot here, a little splotch there to tell you something happened here. But I mean, if there's blood let's take a look at The Evil Within. I'm gonna take my glasses off because they're very reflective, but then how much more awful do I look? No, I look alright. Whatever. I look better with my glasses on. The Evil Within. If there is one thing I hate about video games that turns me off about that game, like literally that fast, it's blood vats. I can't. It is so comical and stupid and pointless. No! Do you realize how many people you'd have to, hang over that vat and just let them drain, and then there's blood coming down the pipe? There'd be more bodies in that vat if that blood was just coming from body parts being thrown down the vat. Blood it coagulates. And not to mention the guy's a detective. He'd know this. It's all in his head, I get that, but he'd know that blood coagulates. It's not this watery thing. If you enter a room and there's blood artistically placed and correctly and intelligently placed, then it makes sense and it's terrifying. And the reason is because blood signifies the loss of a life. And that is extremely powerful to you when you walk into a room. If you want accurate descriptions on what blood looks like, you can find police files that are public. Please bring a vomit bag. Yeah, I haven't looked it up, but my boyfriend has seen them because he's training to be a police officer. He wants to become a police officer. We'll see how that goes. It's hard. It's a grueling process, but blood should be used correctly, not like it's some kind of fruit punch liquid. Like, I can't tell you how just turned off I get from the horror when I enter a room and I'm like, oh great, there's fruit punch everywhere. Did I miss the party? Goodness. And I fall into a blood vat and I'm like, oh my god, no, this wouldn't exist. Like my favorite thing in Oblivion. One of my favorite moments about the Elder Scrolls, Oblivion, specifically Oblivion, was this one moment where you enter Leyawiin Castle. I may actually go get some like footage of this and then just splice it in here if I'm like super awesome. I don't have that time. I can dream. You enter, I think it's Leyawiin Castle, and if you make it into the basement, if you keep going, just all of a sudden, all the cars are driving by right now, all of a sudden, out of the blue, you walk into this torture chamber. There is nothing else to even remotely give you an idea that that's what you're about to walk into, but it's deep beneath the castle, it's in a basement, and there's just blood everywhere. There's torture equipment hanging from the ceilings. I mean, I sat in there horrified for several minutes. I was so scared, and it's not even a horror game, it's an RPG game, and that was more scared than I'd ever been in pretty much any game ever, was right then in that room, especially because the very first character I ever played was a Khajiit, and you get kind of hints from other characters that torture chamber is where she tortures Khajiit because she hates them, and she's racist. So like I was sitting there, Khajiit, and I was like, oh my god, this is the blood of my people. And then I was like, wait, I'm not actually a Khajiit. It's okay, you're fine. This is a video game. It was so overpowering because it was so out of place. Same thing will happen in Dragon Age. There was a Dragon Age Origins quest where you walk in and you're like in the alienage and there's an orphanage. And you walk in and there's like, you go from the alienage, which is already really depressing because it's super sad and just all these people being oppressed, and then you walk into this orphanage. Everything's burned, destroyed, there's blood everywhere, and I mean, that's symbolism. Because you walk into an orphanage and there's blood everywhere, all you are thinking to yourself is, that is the blood of children. And that is the worst thing ever. The blood of children can really, really hit people hard. I mean, I hate to say it so scientifically, but in a horror game, if you're somewhere like an orphanage and you just very artistically, very thematically, or like, I'm trying to explain this better, but if you place blood in such a way that it tells a story, then as the player is following this track of death and horror, it's like even worse because they have to imagine, why is this blood here? You should be able to tell why the blood is there through a story. If there is a story behind that blood that you have just placed as a decal or whatever, then it is even more frightening and more terrifying. And that is how blood should be used. Same thing with hospitals. You have to be careful with that trope because that trope is so overused. For me, hospitals are not that frightening. I spent a great deal of my childhood in a hospital, so hospitals are very similar to home. I mean, obviously, a lot of it was very uncomfortable, getting tubes shoved up my nose and shots. But hospitals for me are not scary at all. Like, if I walk into a hospital, I'm like, yeah, hospitals, hospital food. I like hospital food. Even though I've lost people and people who are important to me have died and I've watched them die in a hospital, it's also home to a lot of very fond memories to me. So, when you use a hospital, hospitals, you have to recognize why a hospital is a trope. If you're using a horror trope in your game, then you need to know why it's a trope, why people use it, such as the fact that blood signifies life, loss of life, someone dying, what was the story behind this death. Same thing with a hospital. A hospital can signify death as well, and that's why it tends to be a frightening concept. And that that loneliness, because it is the last leg. When you're in a hospital, the last thing you think of is, I'm alone. That loneliness, that you are stuck in a room, that there is no glory to this death. You're hooked up to these machines, listening to your heart beep away. That depression, that loneliness, that's what makes a hospital a horrible place to be. Same thing with asylums. Asylums are a little more frightening because you have to play off of the whole, if this is an asylum that's like 500 years old, what torturous things did they put those patients through? It's the madness. The fact that these people didn't even understand that there could be a better thing. That they were mentally tortured and assaulted and just ripped apart, and they thought it was normal. They were let walking around just naked in their own disgusting, juices, and it was just normal. And that was just because asylums were terrible places. You have to do history. You have to look up things like that. Why are hospitals terrifying? If you're doing a haunted hospital, look up real stories of people dying or committing suicide in a hospital. Play off of that feeling of dread and depression and loneliness. The fact that we are suddenly so powerless. That's what a hospital really signifies, is the fact that we as human beings lose power and strength in this place of healing and sickness. It's more of death and sickness. I mean, for me, it's memories and healing, because I got better. But that would suck to find out I'm actually dead. Have been for the last 20 years. So those are those three main tropes. Those are really the main ones that I can think of. Zombies are getting pretty overused now too, but I mean, like, we have to think about what makes a zombie terrifying. And what makes a zombie so scary is the idea that not only have you died a horrible death, someone has been chewing on you and just destroying you physically. What makes a zombie terrifying is that now you've lost the ability to be glorified in death. You've lost the right to honor. You've lost the right for people to mourn your death, because you've come back and you are not in control of yourself. It's the unknown. Is your soul there? Are you aware of what your body is doing and unable to control it? Are you watching yourself slowly dwindle in sanity and physical ability as you just munch on people? Do you even have any remote sense of knowledge? Is your soul still tied to that body, but it's no longer in control of itself? The body is just in control of itself. The virus is feeding off of people and you just have to watch. That feeling of helplessness is what makes zombies terrifying. Why we don't want to become a zombie is because it's the lack of control. Humans want to always be in control. It is a mental thing for us. It is a mental obsession. We want to be in control of our lives because there's so much in this world that we can't control. That's why a lot of people refuse to believe in outer space and the moon and all of that stuff. That weird conspiracy theorist. If you believe in that stuff, I'm so sorry, you're not weird. You have your beliefs, but like, that's why people don't believe in like outer space or spirits or anything that isn't easily proven unless you see it yourself, is because we are not in control of that. It is an unseen, an unknowable variable. We can't control it. And that lack of control terrifies people. If you manage to replicate the feeling of being unable to control your surroundings or the events that have led up to this, and that things around you are spiraling out of control as you try to hang on to it. It's like trying to grab water. You're trying to hang on to this life source, this water, and it's just falling away from you, and you have to watch it as you slowly lose control and try with all your might to hang on. And it's why reactions from characters can be very strong too. There is something so disjointing with the evil within, with how Sebastian, I think that's his name, doesn't respond to anything. His response when stuff happens is, alright. I mean, I know it's in his head. Spoilers. I know, like, pretty much all of the game is in his head. And there's supposed to be some kind of weird, disjointed thing, like in dreams. Like, oh yeah, this is totally normal. But it kind of ruined the whole fear factor, because Sebastian was unaffected. Everything was normal. Why should I be afraid? Why should I be affected? The evil within was more like kind of fun to watch and Not really scary. Ever. No. No. Wasn't scary at all. And because of that, it really set the game back. It wasn't a horror game anymore, which was what they were shooting for. And I understand the psychology of what they were trying to achieve, but it didn't work for that game. Not to mention, I have so many issues with some of the animations. Like, his animation is... Okay, that's a totally other story. Let's not go into animation and technical stuff. This is just design. So, that is my spiel for horror games. How to design a horror game story-wise. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it was informative. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye.